Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Adam Dorsey, a psychologist in Silicon Valley, and I am the host of Super Psyched, a podcast dedicated to supercharging your life. Each episode contains fun, high-quality interviews with experts looking at psychology from all angles. Super Psyched is your tool to get more of what you want in your life and less of what you don't. Our education system provides many incredible resources, and yet there is no class on how to be in a relationship. And when we think about all of what life has to offer, the quality of our relationships repeatedly shows up as one of the most important. I would like to petition that the class exist, and if there were such a class, I would nominate this episode's guest to be one of the instructors. Padma Gordon has written an outstanding book that serves as a roadmap of highly implementable skills to improve your chances at having a great relationship. Her book, Being Together, Practical Wisdom for Loving Yourself and Your Partner, is now available in print and on audio. It has a 5-star average on Amazon, and New York Times bestselling author Marcy Shimoff, whose expertise includes relationship, said of Padma's book, "I'm grateful to gain a new perspective and tools, and to be gently reminded about how to be fully present for myself and my partner." I loved my conversation with Padma. I learned a lot, and I'm confident you will too. So listen in as Padma and I have a user-friendly and lively talk about the roadmap for a healthy relationship. Padma Gordon, welcome to Super Psyched.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Adam.
It's been so much fun getting to know you off air, and I've had several episodes devoted to relationships. And from where I sit, having a handle on how to do well in relationships is easily one of the most important life skills. I wish it were part of the curriculum at every school. I have gotten to know you and your work, and I'm so grateful that you've added your voice to helping people in relationships. I've got to start off by asking, what compelled you to write this book?
What compelled me to write this book was my own struggle at showing up in a relationship as really who I am, as my best self. Because in a relationship is family, and inside of family comes our greatest gifts and our greatest dysfunctions, our deepest dysfunctions.
That's so true.
Yeah, and I can really report on that because I just came back from seeing family on the East Coast. So it's really fresh. Yeah, it was my own sort of journey. Wow, can I do this? Or am I just too messed up and wounded or whatever to really be able to have a healthy relationship? So I decided, let me search. I'm doing my own work, and let me search far and wide, and let me talk to the people that I see really having great relationships and look toward the research and see what happens if I actually practice it. Does it work? Will it work for me? Because if it will work for me, it'll work for you.
So you use yourself almost as a guinea pig to see, will it work for me? And it sounds like the results are in, and it sounds like it probably did work for you, hence you wrote the book. And speaking of books and literature in general, I have this fantastical idea of there being a leaflet or a pamphlet, like almost like a travel brochure on traveling to the land of relationship. And if they did have such a thing, I think it would be rather terrifying. It would have lots of hills, lots of valleys, droughts, snowstorms, forest fires.
Yep.
And I say this because as a psychologist, I often see really successful people who are crushing it in every domain. And yet in the context of their own relationship, they may have been killing it all day, but on the context of their own relationship, they go home and they are 4 years old again. And I just want to know, is that consistent with your findings and your experience of relationships, that they're terrifying?
Yeah, they're totally terrifying because they invite us to open up and to really be exposed. I'm showing you not just my super together, grounded, conscious parts, but I'm showing you all of me. And then you're showing me all of you. And I'm seeing if I can actually practice what it is that I am living in the rest of my world, at work and on an interview and whatnot. So I would say it's definitely true. Relationships are terrifying because the truest desire is that I want to be seen. I being you, me, we want to be seen. And then the greatest fear is, oh my gosh, you'll see me.
Right.
And then what?
If she only knew, she'd be done with me.
Yeah. That's right. Will she leave? Will he leave me once I show this? And that's not to say, oh, I'm acting out. Wow, if I show this really raw, tender part and I really ask for what I need, will you leave me?
Right. I find that so compelling. I remember Billy Crystal wrote a memoir called Still Fooling 'Em. And I know that's his relationship with the audience. But I think that many of us go through relationships so compartmentalized, perhaps even hiding our truths from ourselves. Harville Hendricks, I love one of his sayings is that, and he's one of my favorite relationship teachers. And he says that talking can be the most dangerous thing we will ever do. And I just find that in my office, sometimes people will say things for the first time and they didn't even know it themselves. And then to convey that to a partner with the possibility of rejection. And then I think about how rejection is utterly terrifying. Can you talk about why is it that rejection is so terrifying? Why is it that talking, knowing myself, or being known to another could be so terrifying in this way?
First of all, when I really know myself and I really drop into myself, I am in the unknown. I am deeply in the unknown. But because in the knowing, I'm opening wider and wider to go through the layers of who I thought I was, and then who am I? And then to be able to look across and let that who you have discovered yourself to be, to shine through, and then to quite possibly be misinterpreted, be missed. The rejection is a misinterpretation. It's, oh, I didn't see you. I just projected all over you. I just told the story of who I thought you were, and I missed. And then it's, wait, but don't you see me? This is all I really want, is for us to meet in this moment of the vast unknown, this sacred space of being. And yet, what if we miss? And then you're left to just fall back into the unknown even more fully. So it's really scary. It's scary because relating, the vulnerability is that I don't know. I keep not knowing who I am. I keep discovering who I am. And then I keep opening to the discovery of who you are, which is, wow, that's where the meeting is. That's where the absolute juicy delight is.
That's so great. You live in, if it's okay for me to state that you live in Marin County.
Yes,
I'm not saying where. There's a Marin-based band that is really attuned to the idea of the unknown. You've probably heard of them, Lost at Last.
Yeah.
And the idea of lost at last might sound really contradictory to somebody who's not even willing to get lost in the process. And I think most of us don't want to be lost. It's like almost like we're programmed not to do that. And one of the things that your book seems to have done, or it seems that one of the biggest missions of your book, if I could be so bold as to hypothesize what it might be, is to create a container in which two people can be lost together and be safe in finding themselves and learn in the context of the relationship.
Yes, because relationship is this evolutionary terrain. I mean, at its best, relationship is going to evolve us. And there's really no way to evolve if you're coming in already knowing everything about yourself, and heaven forbid you assume to know about the other person, really.
Yes, I'm certain that when I entered my relationship with my wife, I knew everything about me. And there was just nothing left to discover. It was done.
Oh, that's so freeing.
It was so freeing.
And then you come careening into, wow, who I thought I was.
Right.
And the possibility, though, is that then through colliding and careening into everything you've been believing for a long time, for your whole life, that then you discover something else. And you actually help to evolve one another into these radiant versions of yourselves. And in the process of that, it gets really messy when there might be some mudslinging. There will be. I'll just say there will be.
Mud will be slung.
Mud will be slung. Clothes will need to get washed. Things will need to get composted. It is. It's like relationship is an opportunity to compost everything you thought about. Yeah, I never said that before. That's a good one.
Hey, that was a byproduct of the creativity between us. I love that.
Yeah, totally.
Compost.
Yeah, this is fun. Like I'm composting all of my limiting beliefs, my stories about who I am and how I should be and what this relationship, the shoulds. Yeah, those, you can compost those shoulds right now because they really belong in the pile, and let the earth turn it over and let the worms eat it up. And we don't have any use for these shoulds at all.
Oh my God. And I love the idea of being willing to part with who I thought I was.
Yeah.
And we will learn that we were not who we thought we were in a host of places, but I would say relationship would be at the top of the list.
At the top of the list. Absolutely. Even now, like in the work I do with, that my partner and I do together in sacred space with some reflection, because it's important to keep, I feel like, to continue to get reflection, even when you're doing well, because you're still refining. And I'll just say that the relationship I'm in with my partner right now is 2.5 years. It's short. It's very new still. So we're still finding our way. And yet it's committed. We're committed. So in the commitment, everything can come up. And then we can try to elbow our way out or muscle our way through, but it's not going to work because there's another person and we're learning. That's the other thing, is it's like, how present can I be with myself and how much can I manage myself? And actually, I will say, I'll mention this. I went on this journey to the East Coast to tend to a challenging family situation. And it was beautiful. And I came back also really needing to shed some pieces from what I had taken on in my desire and commitment to be of service to my family in this time of need. And I really needed my partner to just show up for me. I just needed him to hold me. That is all I really needed. And there was a lot going on at our house, which we had scheduled in advance. And so we couldn't just lay down, which is what I wanted to do. I wanted to just lay down in our bedroom and have him hold me. Just be still, just be quiet. There wasn't even anything that needed to be said. And we couldn't do that. And so just that need, that very vulnerable need to just be held, which eventually we came around to find that place, but just being able to ask for that and the vulnerability of that. And then also what I'm getting to is his capacity for showing up as I needed him to show up, and the time I needed him to show up was what it was. And so that really invited me to really return to myself, to hold myself, and to make room for him to step forward. Because I came home and I was a little prickly. I was a little out of sorts. I had traveled all day and I had been in this field of my family of origin, which is a loving field and has its sharp spots, let's say.
Yes. And you said prickly. And so that feels as though it might have been really almost threatening for you to be able to get what you wanted in that moment. If you were prickly and you were actually needing to be held, I think that's a very common thing. We need to be held, and yet we act prickly, and so we don't get held.
Exactly.
So how were you and your partner able to come to the recognition that in spite of the fact that you were prickly, in what I would call a cognitive after image of being with your family, just it's almost like the song of being with your family elicits prickliness. How were you and he able to come to a place of saying, yeah, actually, I need to be held right now?
That's a very important question. And this is also really key, is I had set him up. I had asked, we had been talking every day on the phone, just a little bit. I also set him up, hey, can you please call me every day? Because I just want to know that you're there. I just want to touch in, which he did, which was amazing. And I had set him up for, when I come home, this is what I really need from you. I had asked because I knew he'd be in the middle of his work day. His work is very focused. And how we actually came around to it was he had to, and this was very big. This is, I feel like, loving your partner or his loving me in the moment of my prickliness, of my jangliness, was an act of generosity. He really needed to set his needs and preferences aside. This was a high needs moment. I'm not suggesting that we do this all the time. And in one of these moments where either person in the partnership is like, whoa, I really need you to be there for me.
Totally.
And it has nothing to do with you. And I might not ask you in the way that works. And you might feel a little triggered, or it might sound like a criticism. All that stuff, that is shelved. That is tabled until the primary need is handled, which can go both ways. I was in the position of the receiving position yesterday or the other day. And so finally, he just said he got over himself. He was generous enough to get over himself, put his stuff down, and just say, come here, you, which is what I need. That is what I need, even though the prickliness kind of pushes him away.
Totally, right.
Because it's unpleasant and he feels criticized, or that it's really not a very skillful way of asking. And just to reiterate, this is a time of very high need. This is not an everyday thing.
Totally, right.
Just
Absolutely.
a particular moment that was really unusual, actually.
So let's talk about the two players here, because I think this is probably something that everyone in a relationship faces. The person who has a high need might not even be able to drop in enough to even recognize what that need is. So I'm wondering, A, what are the skills required to know your need? And B, if you're the person attending to the person who needs, how do you get over yourself? Because in that moment, your partner's being insufferable in certain ways. So I realize this is a two-part question and it might be too big, but let's try it out. How do you get in touch with your need, and how does the partner get over him or herself to attend to the insufferable partner?
For me, the best way to get in touch with my need is to drop into my body, to really come into present time, and to also set aside again all these judgments of that I should be able to handle it, and I should be able to be completely regulated and calm when I come back from what was admittedly challenging.
For sure.
And so setting all of that aside and then just really listening, it's interesting because to get the care I needed, or one needs, is to actually give that care and make that connection with oneself. And so for me, that's coming in through breath, through sense, through noticing sensation, through slowing down is critical. To know what you need is to slow way down.
Okay, so I'm going to just ask on behalf of those who, most of my listeners are in Silicon Valley and very thinky. So a cognitive prompt, a question perhaps, might even be helpful. I'm wondering, is there a question a person could ask themselves to really maybe more efficiently get in touch with their needs, in addition to perhaps the somatic body inquiries? Is there something that a person literally could ask him or herself to say, hey, what do I need right now?
You can certainly ask the obvious question that you just asked. And it's also like slowing down enough to give yourself the space. I feel like the key is the cognitive prompt could be, hey, what do I need right now? But in order to even ask that question is to make room, to make some space inside your brain. So maybe it's actually just take out a pen or just start typing on your phone. Oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. This is so hard. And then eventually getting to a point where part of it is unwinding all the thoughts in your head, just letting them rip, so that then you can come back to a space. There's a space. There needs to be a space in which the question can be asked. And then you slow down. You just slow down and you go, what do I need? What do I really need? You might already know. I think it's also important to get a sense of how you operate. I'm very physical. I'm very in my body. So I know that what I need is a huge hug, and I don't need a lot of words. Now, somebody else might say, because it might be like, what do I need? Do I need them to say this to me? Yeah. Sometimes my partner just says to me, everything's okay, honey. Everything's okay. It might be the simplest phrase. It might be a phrase. It might be touch. It might be just quiet presence, just to know someone's there with you. Like,
I just want to highlight something else that you said, because it was so good.
Please,
and I think it's so important because we haven't clocked a ton of time together, but some of the things I know about you are that you're a New Yorker, you're an independent, and you are something of a badass. You've written a book. You are strong. And I would think that in those moments that you're tapping into your need, you have to get over yourself.
Yes.
Or who you thought you were, to go back to what you said earlier, and to realize I'm vulnerable in this moment, and that's totally fine. And I need to ask for this.
Yes.
And it seems like both parties need to get over themselves. You need to get over yourself in that moment because the gladiator has to put down her shield and her sword. And the partner has to recognize, okay, she's in a moment right now. So I love this. Okay. And what does the partner do to best attend to the prickly, needy one?
Well, I can tell you what he did. He was amazing. He actually realized he caught himself. He caught himself as his triggers were arising. As I walked in the door, and part of one thing about me is when I come home, I want to come home to a house that is calm and clean. And he's much messier than I am.
Okay, so he's me. and you're my wife in this story. Okay, keep going.
Great. So we can relate. You know, he just was really present. He was really noticing his triggers. He didn't like the fact that I said, hey, can you please put that away? Hey, what are these packages doing in the front hall? Because I don't leave packages in the front hall. Packages come in and they get opened immediately and the boxes get recycled. There's no question about it. So he noticed what he was feeling and he made a conscious choice, partly because he loves me and partly because I had asked for this. So he did his best to give it to me. Which is incredible. And that's what you do. You make that choice. You make that decision again and again. Okay, here she is. And oh, I'm getting really triggered. Oh, and this is coming. She sounds like she has a gladiator and she's poking me. But you know what? It doesn't matter. And that's actually what we came to later to get it next level dialed in, is that in these moments on either side, when one partner has a very high need, doesn't matter what the need is, a very, very high need, like almost like level of survival need. Mm-hmm. The other person puts their needs aside temporarily, just temporarily, because it's an act of unconditional loving, of unconditional giving. And part of what it means for me to be in a relationship is we have that agreement to put that aside, which takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of setting your stuff aside, getting over yourself and realizing, you know what, we have this agreement that I recognize I've named or he's named. I have a really huge need right now. And this is like a big need, really big need, urgent need.
And what you're describing, this phenomenon of one person really having a big need and the other putting aside, is corroborated as by the science and Gottman's work. And one of you has to be regulated in this moment. I think that's so great. You've really added your own personal touch. One of my favorite things that you've added is the idea of no scorekeeping. I think that's awesome.
Thank you.
Amazing.
It's huge.
Huge. Can you talk about scorekeeping?
Yes, scorekeeping, because P.S., it still shows up. These examples of scorekeeping. So when you're keeping score, instead of being on a team, when you're on a team, you don't keep score of what the other player does. I'm doing it for the team. And I'm serving the team. When you're two individuals, you say, well, I ordered the groceries and you have to put them away or whatever. I shopped, you put it away. Now, of course, you're going to make agreements, but the truth is there's no scorekeeping because it's not fair. It's not fair. It's not equal. And it comes out in the wash. And you trust that we are on the team. We're each doing our parts. We're playing our role. And we don't keep score because the scorekeeping creates separation. It just creates separation, divisiveness, frustration, annoyance, disappointment, feeling criticized. And when you're not keeping score, you're just cheering each other on, being appreciative of the fact that someone is doing whatever they're doing. And there's no tit for tat. That got thrown out with yesterday's trash.
That's so good. Now, as I was saying this and as I was cheering you on, I have to ask, because somebody listening might be saying, yeah, but what if my partner is a total slacker, really is not carrying the weight that it even allows the other to feel somewhat supported. What about in that case where it's really imbalanced?
Well, that's an important distinction to make, because if there's that much of an imbalance, you might be in what is sometimes called a codependent relationship. And you want to really be on the lookout for that. So if you're doing the lion's share, if you're earning all the money and doing all the cooking and the cleaning and taking the dog out, and if you have children, if you're doing everything, I think it's very important to take a good, hard look and to say, hey, what's going on here? Because you're probably in a mode of overgiving and what sometimes is called self-betrayal. I'm going over my limit. And you're probably feeling somewhat resentful if you're doing that. And also, it's not in service. It's like raising kids. You can do everything for your kids because you can do it faster, or you can slow down and be patient and teach them how to do it and know that they're not going to do it the way, it being whatever it is, the way you would do it. But you let them do it even though they put things away. Even now, my daughter, who's 14, unloads the dishwasher. That's one of her jobs. Does she organize and stack the many different bowls the way I do? Absolutely not. But I'd rather have her put the dishes away and learn that this is my task, and I take it on and I do it the way I do it.
Everything you're speaking to is what you refer to as the big C. And in this case, it's not cancer, as it's often thought of. It's commitment, if I'm saying it correctly, I believe.
Yep.
And I was wondering if you could talk about what commitment means to you, how people can operate from a place of commitment that would be most helpful in the service kind of their relationships.
Yes, commitment is the foundation for a relationship, because if you're not committed, you're just straddling. You're straddling the door. It's like I got one foot in and one foot out. And that's really creates a whole dynamic of insecurity. It creates a really like, oh, can I trust you? You're kind of in, but you're not really all in. You have to be all in. And I want to say, and I do outline this in the book, is that you can be all in increments. In fact, I would suggest it. Make incremental commitments. Say in the beginning, okay, like a common one is, oh, we're going to be exclusive when you first get into a relationship. Yeah, so it's like the incremental stages of commitment. And that also takes this listening, this attuning to yourself, this knowing of yourself. And it's interesting because all the stages of relationship are actually present from the beginning, even though they shift and change and morph. But it's like, oh, what do I need? If you come into it with the sense of, what do I need here? What do you need here? Am I willing to communicate about that? Are you willing to communicate about that? Are we willing to meet in the middle somehow? Because I definitely meet in the middle all the time. Otherwise, we'd just be living in a very different environment, which wouldn't be comfortable for me. What's comfortable for one is not necessarily comfortable for the other.
Because it wouldn't be comfortable, it would not be comfortable for you.
Exactly.
I remember when my wife and I were in the stages of moving in together, and she was living up in Sebastopol. I was living in Millbrae. And one of the reasons I knew that I was super into her was she said something that blew my mind while we were considering where we would live. She simply said, unless it works for both of us, it works for neither of us. And I was like,
wise woman.
My God, that's the coolest thing I ever heard in my life. Like,
totally.
I'm at that moment, I doubled down. It was just like, oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
Unless both of us are happy, neither of us is happy. It's just, but I think that's what you're speaking to right now. Yeah, it could be an autocracy, and that maxim that I hate, which is happy wife, happy life, which means what? Just no, happy couple, happy life.
Yeah. And that means also that both of us say yes to the other while being in integrity. You say yes. You say yes sometimes when you don't feel like saying yes because it's in service of the whole. And because you've committed to something, because the commitment is to something bigger than what I want or what you want. It's that what I want, what you want, that gets factored in, but really it's in service of what do we want.
Totally. And I want to talk about measured commitment because I think you're really onto something. I love that idea. And in yes, dear listener, she's not saying commit immediately, assess and commit, but you're also saying that part of the commitment is not engaging what I like to call consent and resent. And that is saying yes. And then later on, dangling it in front of the other in the scorekeeping way that you were describing. But one of the things that is very common is people fall in love very fast.
Very fast.
And they don't take the time to assess. They don't do the important, what I call benchmarkers of seeing a person through a crisis and a catastrophe, traveling together where things, preferably to a place where things can go sideways, because things go sideways. How do you two regroup when things go sideways? There's certain checkpoints that I like in that kind of graded levels of commitment. What are some of the assessment tools that you like, or perhaps the gradations of commitment?
You just want to take a step at a time and notice. Such a simple one is, when you're with someone at the beginning, do they ask you about yourself? Or do they just go on and on and on, which can be gender related, but is not necessarily gender connected, because anyone can just be very self-involved.
All genders are capable of this. Yes.
We are. All genders are capable. So just making sure that there's an exchange, that there's a flow. It's like that I'm not always leaning into you. And I work with people around this. I'm thinking of one person in particular that I've worked with she is great. She's great at talking. She can draw information. She's not a therapist, actually, but she draws information out of people all the time. And I said to her, check and see, are they asking you about yourself? Because people will say to her, when I was dating years ago, people said to me, oh, wow, you're so easy to talk to. I'm like, wow.
I ask a lot of good questions, and I seem like a great conversationalist because I bring you out.
Yes. And because I've practiced it for hundreds, if not thousands of hours.
Right.
Making sure that there's some reciprocity and really checking in. And I feel like part of it is this, where am I with myself? How much, if you have to, another kind of litmus test would be, am I tying myself up in a pretzel to relate to you? Because that's not going to be sustainable. Not at all. And for someone like me, I am thinking of years ago with this one man that I dated. My energy is pretty intense. I have a big energy, a big presence. And with him, I had to tiptoe. And I practiced. I was like, okay, can I tiptoe? I have a range of being in rapport. I can speak softly and pull my energy in. And with someone that I'm going to be in partnership with, I want to be able to be loud sometimes and then recognize that they're in a tender moment, and I'm going to pull it in and just really hold space for them. But just, you want to be able to be yourself. Check in, it's an agreement that you have with yourself. Can I be myself with you? And can you be yourself with me? Because evolving into the best version of yourself does not mean evolving into the best version of yourself or a version of myself so that I can be with you.
Oh, such an important distinction. And a person will hobble through life rather than really walk upright. So I think you're spot on. The reciprocity, something I refer to as the drive away test. It's like, when you drive away from an interaction with this person, do you feel taller, or do you feel somehow constricted, or perhaps even deflated?
Yeah.
And in your case, you're a strong, independent woman from New York, and you've got to be that. I know that you've had to probably make some accommodations living in Marin. You're a New Yorker from Marin. And it's one of the things that I'm really just so much appreciating about you. Oh my God, so much, is your beginner's mind. You are so humble and so willing to check yourself and to hit the refresh button and say, what can I learn here? What don't I know? And I think that may be one of the most, just your being is probably in every page of your book, of just the willingness to engage that beginner's mindset, that humility that is so necessary in the context of relationship, and the willingness to also say, am I honoring me by being in this relationship? Can I be me?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I feel like that place of self-inquiry is essential. It's essential that we're just like really noticing, how am I being? Because then we're back to this, my best self comes out and my worst self comes out with this person. And truthfully, I have learned to be not a dialed down or not any kind of contracted or constricted version of myself, but more like a more graceful version of myself.
So to that point of grace, one of the things I really also like about you is that you say the 5-to-1 ratio is not enough. I know. So just for listeners, you may have heard me talk about 5 positives to 1 negative in the context of relationship will yield a net positive, and just 3 positives to 1 negative is what it takes just to get things to neutral. And you say you're upping the ante to a higher number to that point of your grace. Can you talk about what is your ideal ratio and why is that so important? And really, how can we execute on that?
Yeah, that's so key. It's so key. 90-10, 90%. So 9 out of 10 in an ideal world.
I love it.
That you can actually say and be 9 out of 10 times positive, encouraging, all of this. Don't be fake, be real. That it's really look for what's working. Look for what you can appreciate, notice, thank your partner for. And then in the rare moment when the ground, and I've seen this with couples, it's like what happens is when you feed the ground, you're seeding the ground with goodness. You're seeding the ground with goodness. You're depositing in your emotional bank account and the deliciousness of the water that you're swimming in together. It's good. It's nourishing. The temperature's right. It's got that silky quality when you swim in one of those, bodies of water.
Right there. I felt it. Yeah,
it's so delicious.
You
right?
And be in there all the time.
Yes, that's just the sweet spot. And then there's room for, hey, honey, I'm wondering if you might be willing to, just a very small thing asked in a very gentle, non-condescending way so that it can be received. And I want to hear what you're going to say. And let me just flip this.
I'm just beyond stoked. I'm wondering if you could tell me how to frame things so that it could be most easily heard by most people.
I wonder if. Great curiosity.
I think you're spot on there. Is there any other?
Yeah, the one I just used. This is $1 million phrase right here. Use this liberally.
I wonder.
Would you be willing?
Would you
be willing? Because would you be willing leaves the door open. Because actually in this moment, I'm not willing to do X, Y, Z. I'm not willing to shift. And so that's also helping me, say in this case, to be in integrity with myself. I'm not selling myself out. I'm not skipping over where I'm actually at. And where I'm at has to do with, have I slept? Have I exercised? Have I meditated? Have I eaten? Have I just gotten off a plane for 6 hours or 6.5 hours? Whatever it is, then I could say, actually, I'm not willing in this moment. It doesn't mean I'm never open to it, just in this moment. So the would you be willing is great. Approaching with curiosity. And P.S., if you're triggered, if you're charged, you cannot just override that with, would you be willing to? Because then it's just, there's a push behind it that's going to be detected. And your partner is most likely not going to respond well to an edge or a push.
And I just want to call out the fact that these are not Jedi mind tricks. These are things that both partners can use. Yeah. And you're not pulling one over with the would you be willing. I love the idea of keeping the door open. And I'm thinking about what Abigail Adams said to John Adams. John was famous for bludgeoning his ideas and never getting them through because he was just so insufferable. And she simply said, back then it was, men wish to believe they've come to their own conclusions. And I love the idea of would you be willing, because it's almost, I'm coming to my own conclusion here. This is an inquiry. This is a big one. And there's another thing I also like about it. And that is, it feels like it calls upon our most altruistic parts. Would you be willing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be willing to be magnanimous in this moment and altruistic and good for the sake. Yes, I would. Yes, I would be willing to do this.
Yeah. Exactly.
I love that. I've not heard that one. So
I'm so glad.
This is a Super Psyched exclusive.
It's phenomenal. I learned that phrase years ago when I was running a nonprofit foundation. And it's a great, because in working with the people you work with, as well as the people that you're working with, living with in your home, it's all relationship. So if you want to direct people, could you please do that? Is very different than, would you be willing to set those chairs up? Would you be willing? It's a whole different tone. Because also if you're someone who tends toward the bossiness, as maybe I do or have, then it gets you to pop out of that mechanism of just bossing people around, directing people, because people don't respond well to that. So this can be a great approach for anyone who's managing anything.
People wish to believe they've come to their own conclusions.
Yes, they do, which actually is it is also part of leading. Because we take turns leading each other in relationship. And I was just working with someone, an incredibly lovely woman who is pregnant. And she is so gracefully leading her partner to assist with the nesting process. And it's really, I could feel her generosity. She's just incredibly lovely, warm person. And just how she's leading him. And her partner is really willing to follow. Why is that? Because she's leading from love. She's leading with love. She's not stressed out and bossing him around and telling him what to do. Because people will be and they will have come to it on their own terms. Oh, yeah, I want to help with that. Because actually, we do want to help. We really do. That's the nature. Humans really want to help each other.
That's part of a phenomenon that I absolutely adore called the Franklin phenomenon, I believe, that people love to be helpful.
Yes.
And that Benjamin Franklin, I believe, famously was able to convert a foe by simply asking the foe for help. And people would suddenly become his best friend because they were now allies in a thing.
Yep,
and I think that relationship really provides that opportunity. And one of the things, before I even get to coming back to the place that we were a moment ago, I really get that you're a collector. I mean, you've gone all over the globe. You've really collected ideas from your jobs, from your relationships, from vast numbers of voices, and anywhere it seems that you could get them that have contributed to the totality of the book that you've written. And I think that's awesome. We're talking about appreciation. I know you've actually even devoted an entire chapter to appreciation. Let's talk about mudslinging. We were talking a little bit about it earlier, and some people believe, and you've probably heard the expression, "Oh, we have such a great relationship, we never fight." And in my personal and professional experience, the absence of fighting does not necessarily mean a really great relationship. In fact, it could even be a symptom that a lot of things are not being discussed. Can you talk about, you have an entire chapter tended to the rupture and the repair. And oh my God, yes, the rupture and the repair in the context of a relationship. What could be more important? So let's talk about that for a sec. What are some of the do's and don'ts for rupture and repair? And why is the rupture and repair so important?
Well, I would also, just to chime in on that, I would say that you definitely want to fight in your relationship. If you're not fighting at all, not knock down, drag out, and you don't want to just go round and round on the merry-go-round of it. But if you're not fighting, you're probably ignoring yourself. You're ignoring something that's going on, even though you might just be someone who lets things roll off really easily. For me, that's suspicious if there's no fighting. Not that there's incessant arguing. I'm not a proponent of ongoing arguing or fighting, but just that you have your voice and your partner has their voice and you do not always agree, and that there's room for that. So I feel like in the rupture and repair, it actually takes you into deeper connection. You might notice, right? We have makeup sex, right? That's part of the repair. We come back together and we realize, oh, we really love each other. Let's show each other with this amorous expression. But things with rupture and repair are, I have this in the book, do-overs. Have a do-over. If you say something and your partner gets triggered and you really didn't mean to say it that way, you just blurted it out, or just weren't really present, or were tired or hungry or just grumpy, you could just say, and I say, can we have a do-over? Can I have a do-over here? Just like on the playground when we were kids. I didn't mean to say that. Can we erase, rewind? For anyone who remembers cassette tapes, you erase and rewind. And it's just like, how can I say this in a different way that actually is what I meant to say? And that's coming from my heart, and that's coming from respect, and that's coming from care. So there's do-overs. Do-overs are a great reparative strategy, actually. So another thing is just if you have a fight, do not let it go on and on for days. Mm-hmm. You want to come back together, and when you're ready, it might take a moment because you have to let your feelings move. Maybe you're journaling, maybe you go for a walk or a run or dance around or do whatever you do to move your energy to come back to a place of calm and neutrality where you're not just flailing, and come back and say, oh, I take responsibility for this. I'm sorry. And really just come back as soon as you can, really as soon as you can. And that's where the practice of mindfulness comes in, because then I'm watching myself and I don't let myself get too far afield. And I just come back and I say, oh, okay, because that's the thing. You don't want to let it get too far out of bounds. Also, when you're having an argument, anyone can say at any time, I'm done. Like, I'm just pulling the plug. I'm not going to keep, because an argument, say, or a fight of some kind is, I throw the ball to you, you throw the ball to me, we keep throwing it back and forth and back and forth. I'm going to take the ball. I'm just going to set it down and say, I don't want to relate this way. I want to relate this way. And sometimes I assess my capacity. I notice this is what I can do right now. I could just put the ball down because I don't want to keep on living my pattern and living this pattern with you. So I put the ball down, and then I get myself settled, get myself to a place of being available for a healthy communication. And then I have that. But what I notice is people, myself included, and I know lots of couples who do this, living in what I would call some dysfunction, they won't stop. They won't put it down. Oh, another thing is just be willing to be wrong for the sake of the team.
God, yes.
God,
yes. Be willing to be wrong. And that's such a tough pill for many of us to swallow. And I think the willingness to fail, admit that you failed, that you're wrong. Oh, it's such a good skill to cultivate.
It is humility. It takes humility. And also I care more about you than I do about being right. I care more about us. And that's actually something I was going to mention. I was looking at this recently, is create structures to handle your pain points. Don't let the relationship focus on the little things that you're arguing about and struggling over. Just create systems and structures to handle those things so that you can enjoy being together and celebrate each other. It's like we have a chore wheel, or we have I have this on my refrigerator. I have a little erasable magic marker board. And instead of reminding my partner, hey, you were going to do this, you're going to do that. Did you do that yet? I just write it on the board. And then he's responsible, and he can look and he'll see the things and he'll get them done within the agreed upon time frame.
One of the least sexy and one of the most important ideas that feels like it really relates to what you're talking about is efficiency in the context of relationships. And what you're describing are systems to create efficiency so that the two parties can metabolize a thing more quickly and can attend to the minutia in a fast manner so that we can get to the infinite space of the yummy more often, which is really the heart and the soul of the relationship. I want to attend to the levity piece. And you and I are both clear fans of humor. We laugh a lot. And I did an independent, unpublished study where I asked a lot of elderly folks who'd been married for a long time and happily for a long time.
Yes.
That's the key piece. They were happily married for a long time. And I asked them what was the secret. And both of them generally would say in unison, laughter, shared laughter, humor. And you have an entire chapter devoted to humor. I'm guessing that you're not talking about sarcasm or snarkiness, but you are talking about humor. Can you describe how humor can be the fountain of youth for a relationship or rejuvenating in some way?
Sure. And I love that you did your own independent study on, and went around talking to all these elderly couples, happy elderly couples, because humor is just so essential. The chapter's called Humor is Key. And it's so key because it creates a bond when we laugh together, and it puts you on like, I'm in the inside. I've got the inside joke. We've got these inside jokes. And we look at the world, and our world is pretty crazy right now. Pretty crazy. So you want to really be able to laugh and to see the irony and to see things that just make you smile, make each other smile, invite that. So there's the bonding aspect. Then there's also the healing aspect. Humor is incredibly reparative, right? If you want to repair, you want to be able to, like, just as you said, bring the levity to the situation. That's be like, oh my God, I can't believe I said that. What are you talking about over there? I'm completely wrong here. And you can take responsibility, but you've also brought in this humor, this playfulness that then just changes the whole, tenor of the interaction. It's no longer this big, heavy, dark thing. It's, oh yeah, I was really, to use a New York word, I was really a schmuck. It's, oh my God, I can't believe it. So it's like when we just really take responsibility. So I think that's a really positive side of humor is we take responsibility. It's really bonding. Something awkward happens and we laugh about it instead of shutting down around it and contracting and being an embarrassment or shame. I can laugh at that because we're in these bodies, and these bodies have air coming out of either end. So those things are funny. You want to be able to laugh at yourself and laugh. And I want to say this, laugh with your partner, like laughing at your partner. And like you said, no, snarkiness and sarcasm are no-nos.
They're relationship killers.
Sarcasm, killers, eye rolls. Also, that's a total no-no. And this has been talked about. Again, really get a reflection on what am I doing? What am I doing with my face? Because you might not even realize what you're doing when you're talking to your partner and you're making this eye roll or you're scrunching or you're making some kind of judgy face. You don't want to do that. So I just feel like humor is, plus you can laugh forever. You might not be able to hike. You might not be able to have this wild intimacy that you've had, but like you could still laugh together. And when you crack up together, also humor secretes all these positive hormones. So you're just getting high from laughing. We're making each other feel good because we're laughing, because we're playing. And it also, to me, humor is incredibly creative. So it keeps your creative spirit alive. And it's very dynamic. So you can riff off each other and just make up words and be super silly. It's another way that our hearts can dance and play together. You want to be able to play.
If I weren't a psychologist, my other dream job would have been to be a writer on a really funny comedy show, sitting around a table with a lot of funny people, coming up with crazy funny ideas. But Mom, I have my final question. Oh my God, I'm loving this. Oh, and by the way, the word schmuck, I have to talk about that for a second because Mel Brooks, who I think is one of the original gods of comedy, has really been sad that douchebag has come into the vernacular and he wants schmuck to come back. He thinks that's a great word. I think that's a funnier word. So I just had a great word. Little tip of the hat to Mel Brooks because he was just the best. But my magical question, it's a fantastical one. If you, Padma, had the ability to confer upon all humanity one insight or skill that would help people in their relationships, what would it be? And what do you imagine would be the impact on the individual as well as society at large?
Wow, that's a beautiful question. Because really what I'm most devoted to in life is to presence, is to love and the heart. And so if we really lead with love, we look across and we recognize, oh, that's love. I'm in a relationship with divine love because I am inside and outside. What would that be like if we were dancing? Love dancing with love, the divine dancing with the divine. It's been said before. And for me, it has a feeling of that it's just this essential, it has this essential fragrance of all the things we spoke about, of beauty, of play, of creativity, of laughter, that we're just allowing our hearts to dance together, which really means setting all of our other stuff aside and let the heart dance together. How would that change the world? Wow.
Massively, right?
Massively. Because it takes away this positionality and oppositionality, because it makes it also so obvious when it shows up. Well, I know, I have my idea. You're wrong. I don't agree. This. So wait a minute. No, this is just love dancing with love. And love has infinite space. Love is infinitely spacious. So there's no need for, how could you keep score?
Totally. It would take away the entire premise of keeping score.
Exactly. It becomes null and void.
It's null and void. Wow.
Yeah.
So Padma, I've loved this conversation. I'm so great. I'm really grateful to you for sharing your wisdom with my listeners, and definitely cannot wait for the audio version of this book, which is already available on Kindle and in print. And I'm so glad that people can reach you if they need to find you. The information will be in the show notes. And just thanks again for being on the Super Psych podcast.
Thank you. It's just such a delight. I just want to say, you're such a delightful, wise, funny, very knowledgeable person. I really just want to acknowledge you. And I feel like Super Psyched is the perfect name for this podcast, because I really feel I want to recognize and honor how psyched you are. Like, you are psyched about life. And thank you for all of how, like, the thought and the commitment. I feel your commitment. I felt your commitment in the questions, in your responses. So I just really am cheering you on to keep going in your life and offering your heart and your wisdom and your humor and so thank you.
Oh, Padma, what beautiful reflection. And I love that you brought in the big C in terms of my commitment and my enthusiasm.
Totally.
Thank you. That's spot on with everything I intend. So thank you for that too.
Beautiful. You're really welcome.
This is Dr. Adam Dorsey thanking you for listening to Super Psyched. If you know anyone who might like it or who might benefit from listening, share it. And if you like the episode, please hit subscribe